Sometimes, the smallest sentence can stop a storm. Sometimes, 5 words can rebuild a life that everyone else had already buried. A rainy city street. Dim light flickers on a hospital sign. A girl, soaked, shivering, steps out of the darkness. Her shoes slap the wet pavement. She walked into the hospital barefoot. No one noticed at first. People were too busy running, not away from her, but from their own pain. The automatic doors slide open. Cold fluorescent light spills out. The girl pauses, her eyes red, her hands trembling around a soaked piece of paper. She had nothing left. No home, no family, not even her own name anymore. Just 5 words, scribbled in shaky handwriting. And when the nurse read them, the entire ward went silent. Those 5 words changed everything. This is her story, told by Tale Tribe. Her name was Elena. At least, that's what was written on the crumpled note the nurse found in her pocket. No surname, no ID, no address, just Elena. Nurse turns the note over. 5 faded words written in blue ink. Studio microphone. And underneath her name, those 5 words. Words that no one could understand yet. They asked where she came from. She didn't answer. She just looked at the floor, as if the truth itself was too heavy to lift. She had been found outside the city limits, near the old railway bridge, the place where people went when they wanted to disappear. Her body was cold, her pulse faint, but her eyes were alive. Alive in a way that made everyone else uncomfortable. Studio microphone. Before that night, she lived in a forgotten part of town, where the roofs leaked and hope cost more than food. Her mother had passed away the year before. Her father had left long before that. So it was just Elena and her younger brother, Theo. Theo was 7. He had lungs too weak for the world. Every winter, he coughed like the air was burning him from the inside. Studio microphone. She worked nights at a diner that never really closed, scrubbing floors while laughter faded into the early hours. Sometimes, she'd take leftovers home. Sometimes, there were no leftovers. But Elena had a way of smiling even when she was starving. Because Theo's smile was the only thing she had left to protect. He once told her, "When I get better, I'll build us a house. One that never leaks." She laughed. She promised she'd hold him to it. But promises don't stop illness. And sometimes, faith isn't enough to fight poverty. She tried everything. Free clinics, local charities, borrowed money. But when Theo's condition worsened, the bills multiplied like the hours she worked. And one day, she came home to find his bed empty. Elena frozen in doorway, her eyes searching. The soup bowl crashes to the floor. He'd been taken to a hospital across town. Someone found him collapsed outside the diner. Elena ran there barefoot, through the rain, through traffic. But by the time she arrived, it was too late. Doctor shaking head. Elena collapses in hallway. A nurse whispers a prayer. That was the night she stopped believing in miracles. For months, she wandered the city like a shadow, sleeping in stations, collecting coins no one wanted to touch. Every day she told herself she'd stop breathing tomorrow. But every morning, she still woke up. Until one dawn, cold and violet, she found something. A piece of paper stuck to a bench. 5 words written in a hand she recognized. It was Theo's handwriting. And those 5 words would lead her back to the hospital she once feared. That's where our story truly begins. Elena hadn't been inside a hospital since the night she lost Theo. The smell of antiseptic hit her like a memory she'd tried to bury. Sharp, sterile, merciless. Her hand hesitates on the glass door handle. The nurse at the reception looked up, startled. Barefoot girl. Wet clothes. Blank stare. The kind of sight that makes people look away out of politeness or discomfort. I need to see someone, Elena whispered. About my brother. The nurse types, glances at the computer, then shakes her head sadly. There's no record, the nurse said gently. I'm sorry, honey. But Elena didn't move. She just stood there, soaked, shivering, holding that one piece of paper. The nurse tried again. You can't stay here without an appointment. And that's when Elena finally spoke up, voice trembling, desperate. I'm not leaving. He told me to come. The nurse freezes, curious now. Who told you that? Elena opened her palm. Inside was the small note she had found that morning. Note reads, "Go back to where the light began." He wrote this, she said, my brother. Theo. The nurse frowned. Honey, your brother's gone, Elena interrupted softly. I know. But he told me to come. Security was called, not with cruelty, but caution. The kind you use when someone is both fragile and frighteningly certain. They tried to walk her outside, but she resisted. Not with anger, with sorrow. 2 guards escort her through the rain. I came back, she whispered. You said come back. Her words vanished into the thunder. The world moved on. People walked by. Cars honked. And for a long while, no one noticed the barefoot girl standing outside the hospital gates, soaked to the bone, staring at the windows as if waiting for them to speak. When night fell, she found shelter under the side awning near the ER. The ground was cold, the walls buzzing with the hum of unseen machines. She pressed her back to the wall and closed her eyes. And that's when she heard it, a voice. Not outside. Inside. You're not too late. Her eyes snapped open. No one there. Just the steady rhythm of rain hitting metal. She thought maybe she was losing her mind. Maybe grief had finally blurred into madness. But then, a light flickered from the upper floor, room 204. She knew that room. It was where Theo had been. She stood, slowly, walked toward the side entrance. The door, strangely, was unlocked. The hall was dim, quiet. Every sound, the squeak of her footsteps, the hum of a vent, echoed like confession. And then she saw it. Room 204. Same room number. Same yellow light spilling under the door. Her breath hitched. She turned the handle. Inside was not what she remembered. No machines. No bed. No doctors. Just a single chair in the middle of the room. And sitting in that chair, an old woman, small and fragile, holding a stethoscope like a rosary. You came, the woman said. He said you would. Elena stares, barely breathing. Who? The boy with the light in his voice. Elena felt her knees go weak. The note, the voice, the light in the window. All of it led here, to this moment. The woman motions for Elena to sit. She obeys slowly, like in a trance. You're holding onto a ghost, the woman said. But he's not gone. He's waiting. Waiting where? Elena whispered. At the place where faith and grief shake hands. And with that, the woman reached out, placed a trembling hand on Elena's heart, and whispered, Don't be afraid of what you still love. Elena's tears fall silently. The note slips from her fingers onto the floor, voice breaking. For the first time since Theo died, she cried without shame. Not quietly, not politely, but raw, every buried sound clawing its way out of her chest. And that's when the old woman said something that would haunt her long after that night. He left you a second message. You just haven't opened it yet. That was the moment her pain became a doorway. And the miracle, though she didn't know it yet, was already on its way. The night had gone heavy. Corridors dim. Vending machines humming. Nurses whispering behind glass. The kind of hour when even grief seems too tired to cry. Elena sits in the waiting area now, curled up in a corner chair, clutching her soaked backpack. The old woman was gone. No one else had seen her. The room where she sat, Room 204 was empty now. White walls. No chair. No trace of her voice. Elena thought maybe she'd imagined it. Maybe the pain had finally twisted her memories into ghosts. She closes her eyes, exhausted. Camera zooms on her hand holding the crumpled note. Go back to where the light began. The words replayed again and again, like a lullaby she didn't understand. A shadow moved in the reflection of the window across from her. Reflection shows a young man standing behind her, maybe 18, maybe 20. Put up, face partly hidden. He stood barefoot. His clothes simple, gray hoodie, hospital pants. But his presence, quiet, unwavering, carried a kind of calm that didn't belong to this world. Elena, whispering, "Are you lost?" Movie camera. He shakes his head slowly, smiling, faint. "No," he said. "I'm where I'm supposed to be." Something about his tone made her freeze. It wasn't the words, it was the certainty behind them. Elena, trembling. "Do you work here?" Boy shakes head, voice quiet. "Not really. I visit sometimes." "Visit who?" "People who've forgotten how to breathe." He sits on the chair across from her, movements calm, deliberate. He looks directly at her, eyes gentle but piercing. "You came back like he asked." His breath catches. "You knew Thea." Boy nods. "I was there when he stopped speaking." "He was scared," the boy said. "Not of dying, but of leaving you with silence." Elena leans forward, eyes wide, tears threaten. "Who are you?" Smiles faintly. "Someone who hears what others ignore." He reached into his pocket and pulled out a folded piece of paper, identical to hers, only dry and neatly creased. He places it in her hand. Her fingers tremble as she unfolds it. Same handwriting, same ink, but this one said something new. "You're not too late to save me." Elena gasped softly. What is this?" Softly, as though reciting memory. "He said you'd come when the world stopped making sense. And when you did, I should give you that." Elena, almost whispering. "Where did you get this?" Boy calm. "He wrote it for you. Before the machine stopped. He said you'd try to forget, and that you'd come back one day to remember." Elena's body went still. Her mind flooded with images. Theo's voice, the sound of monitors, the smell of the room, the silence that came after. Theo smiling in hospital bed, the machines beeping, his hands slipping away. Her grief cracked open, not cleanly, but like shattered glass. Elena, crying softly. Why would he send you?" Boy looks down, voice soft, certain. "Because you wouldn't listen to anyone else." He stood, walked toward the hallway. Every step soundless, like he was made of air and memory. Elena calls out, "Wait, what am I supposed to do?" Boy turns slightly, smiles gently. "Finish what he started." Elena, desperate. "What does that mean?" Boy pauses, voice barely audible. "You'll know when you stop being afraid to say it." He turns the corner and vanishes. Light flickers, hallway empty again. Elena ran to the hallway, but he was gone. No doors opened. No footsteps. Only the faintest scent of rain and antiseptic, and the echo of his words. Finish what he started. That night, she found herself back in room 204, now dark and empty. She sat on the floor, the two notes in her hands. And for the first time, she whispered the words she'd been too afraid to say for months. Soft, trembling. "Theo, I'm sorry. I stopped living when you stopped breathing. But I'm still here." And that's when it happened. The monitor, long unplugged, blinked once. Just once. Faint light flickers in the unplugged machine. Elena gasps, tears falling. She didn't scream, didn't move. She just stared, shaking, whispering into the quiet. "You heard me." Somewhere between grief and faith, something had answered. Morning came slow, like the world was afraid to wake her. For the first time in years, Elena didn't feel completely hollow. The ache was still there, but now it had shape. A name. A purpose. She noticed something she hadn't before, a faint imprint on the back of the first note. The ink had bled through, but the words still formed a pattern. Pencil scratching softly as she shades over the back of the note. Letters slowly appear through the paper, like a hidden message. Elena, whispering to herself, "You'll find the rest in the light." Her heart skipped. In the light. The same words the old woman had said. The same words the boy had echoed. She stands, looking around. Light from the window hits the corner of the room, revealing an old framed notice board. She pulled it closer, dust falling away. Behind the cork, hidden under faded papers, she found it, another note. The handwriting was unmistakable, Theo's. But this one wasn't meant for the hospital. It was meant for her. Reads aloud, voice trembling. "If you're reading this, it means I couldn't hold on. But you can. You always could. You thought you needed me to breathe, but the truth is, you were my breath. And now you have to be someone else's." Her eyes filled with tears, but this time, they weren't heavy. They felt light, like relief. Like exhale after years of silence. Sunlight now fully floods the room, warm gold over her face. She holds the note to her chest. Elena, whispering, "Finish what he started," means help others breathe again. Theo hadn't meant medicine. He meant life. He meant the thing she used to do before grief swallowed her. Helping people who felt invisible. That was who she was, before the loss. That was who he fell in love with. And that was who she'd forgotten how to be. Elena wipes her tears, stands, and faces the window. The world outside looks alive again. Buses moving, people walking, sunrise spreading across the skyline. Softly, with strength. "Okay," she whispers. "I'll finish it." The hospital staff found her later that morning. Calm. Awake. Smiling. Really smiling. For the first time since anyone could remember. Nurse approaches. The same nurse who first saw her the night before. "Are you all right, miss?" Elena smiles faintly. "I think so. I just remembered why I came." Nurse, curious. "Do you need help finding someone?" Elena looks at her, gentle tone. "No, I think I'm here to help you." And in that moment, something inside her shifted. Not like a movie miracle. No lights, no voices from the sky. Just a quiet truth. That pain can either build walls or windows. And she was done hiding behind walls. Weeks passed. The rain came again, but it sounded different now, softer. She spent her mornings at the hospital, afternoons at shelters. Each day, she carried Theo's note in her pocket, folded, worn, but whole. Every time she saw someone staring at the floor, afraid to speak, she'd whisper to herself the 5 words that had brought her back. Elena sits beside a crying patient. She leans in, comforting them. "Elena, softly. You're not too late to save me." And for every life she touched, it was like Theo's heart kept beating through hers. Not as memory, but as continuation. She wasn't the girl who walked into a hospital barefoot anymore. She was the woman who walked out carrying someone else's hope. Time has a quiet way of healing. Not all at once, not like the movies, but in small, ordinary moments that end up meaning everything. It had been 6 months since the night she walked in barefoot, shaking and lost. 6 months since she'd found the 2 notes that changed her life. No one in the hospital ever figured out who the barefoot boy was. The cameras that night showed no one in the hallway. No patient matching his description was ever admitted. Room 204 had been empty for years. But Elena stopped asking for proof. She didn't need to know how it happened, only that it did. Her laughter began to sound different now, lighter, like it had space again. Space for joy, for memory, for the unknown. And she never forgot those 5 words. They became her signature, the heartbeat of her purpose. She writes a note, and tucks it under a patient's pillow before leaving. It reads, "You're not too late to save me." She didn't mean it literally anymore. She meant, it's not too late to love, to forgive, to start again. Word spread. The girl who once came for help was now the reason others stayed alive. People began calling her the Barefoot Angel. She never liked the title, but she smiled anyway. "I'm no angel," she'd say. "I just remember what it feels like to forget you matter." Cut to her walking home at dusk. She passes a shop window and catches her reflection. For a moment, she sees her old self, wet, lost, trembling, staring back. Sometimes, the past still visits her, but it doesn't haunt her anymore. It just reminds her how far she's come. Every scar has a story, but some stories learn how to shine through the scar itself. Elena stops, looks at the sky, soft orange clouds drifting. Elena, whispering to herself, "Thank you, Theo," for the second breath. On the anniversary of Theo's passing, she started something new, a group called Finding Light. People sitting in a circle, sharing quietly. Elena listening, hand on someone's shoulder. There were no therapists, no sermons, just people telling the truth out loud. Sometimes crying, sometimes laughing through tears. Always. And whenever someone new joined, eyes hollow, shoulders slumped, she'd hand them a folded piece of paper. The paper unfolds. Same 5 words. "You're not too late to save me." And every time, the reaction was the same. Confusion first, then silence, then tears, because somehow, those words meant something different to everyone who read them. And maybe that was the point. Life didn't become perfect, but it became possible again. And sometimes, that's more than enough. Because healing doesn't mean the rain stops. It just means you finally remember how to dance in it. The world is full of stories that don't make the news. Quiet ones, small ones, the kind where a single sentence or a single act of kindness changes everything. Not every miracle comes with lightning or angels. Sometimes it comes in paper, ink, and 5 words written by a stranger who decided to care. We wait for heroes in the clouds, but the truth is, the miracle might already be sitting next to you. Or maybe it's you. The smallest act of love can echo through someone else's darkness and lead them back to the light. Theo's note didn't save her life. It reminded her she still had one. And maybe that's what faith really is. Not waiting for a sign from heaven, but choosing to believe that even in your silence, someone still hears your heartbeat. So if you ever find yourself lost, if the world ever feels too heavy to hold, remember this. You're not too late to save me. Maybe those 5 words aren't just for her. Maybe they're for all of us. This story was inspired by true echoes of kindness. If you were moved by this story, share it. Someone out there might still be